Well, welcome, Vera, to Mind Body Relationship, where we talk about the mind, the body, and the relationship. And how about if you introduce yourself? Because you have quite a wide and varied background.
I am a psychotherapist, registered psychotherapist. I am also a clinical pharmacist with over 20 years of clinical experience. And I'm honored to be both. And I enjoy the expanded scope of practice because it grants me, I feel that it grants me much more insight and understanding at times of that mind and body connection.
Mm.
And that pertains very heavily to the topic of today, to the fertility and infertility treatments. And yes, I'm very grateful to be here today and have the chance to share it with you.
Wonderful, wonderful. I am too. Yeah. So, fertility is a huge topic.
It is.
And it's, something that you think just comes naturally.
Oh, yes, you got it.
Only the truth of the matter is, it's actually quite opposite to that.
You're right.
There's a lot of couples out there that have their hearts set on pregnancy and really, really struggle through the process, and it does not come naturally. So, how about if you take it away and tell us what you've learned about fertility?
Absolutely. And I was struck to find out how often that actually happened. What you mentioned, it used to be, according to the previous data, it's 1 in every 6 couples who struggle with infertility. But nowadays, that the average age of new mothers changes so dramatically. People choose to have a child later in life for all sorts of reasons, and they do struggle with fertility as the peak, the best age to have a baby, at least a female age, is in their 20s.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
The
yes.
fertility counseling area is growing as the fertility treatments area is growing so fast, and we have all kinds of new areas to explore in counseling. The family options now are expanding. We have both couples and individuals pursuing having a baby now, including the LGBTQA group. People, like I said, decide to have children later and later in life, and hence the challenges with fertility. People survive better all kinds of diseases, including cancer, and that affects fertility, and that's a huge separate topic, which I will touch upon, but just briefly, as you mentioned, that's a huge area on its own.
Mm-hmm.
And
I know. So many categories.
oh yes, and why fertility counseling is so important is that having a child has a deep cultural and symbolic value, of course, and it often lies at the base of the sense of self-worth and belonging. We all have a fertility story of some sort. Even people who decide to be childless. And it can take 5 minutes or 20 years, but we all have a fertility story. And I will speak to that a bit more, but that brings up the thought of countertransference. We need to be very aware of our own fertility story and how it can affect treatment, right? And plus the modern challenge is the internet, which is full of information of all kinds. And that's a well of reasons to blame self and of added shame as we try to compare. We need to be on par with our peers, and that's causing a lot of pressure, as we all know, just with social media. Calls for the need in fertility counseling. And maybe before I address the counseling, I'll just very quickly address the reproductive basics. And the lingo, just so we're all on the same page. So to conceive, we need an egg, and that can be accessed through, that can be obtained through ovulation or through egg retrieval in clinic. And we need a sperm cell, and that can be achieved via ejaculation as naturally as it happens, or by aspiration. in the clinic.
Mhm.
And then we need a uterus to carry the resulting embryo. And that could be a uterus of a parent or a gestational carrier, or surrogate parent. So when we combine the gametes, we have an embryo, and those embryos can be genetically tested and frozen to be used later, or it can be a fresh embryo to be used right away. With a fresh embryo, there's more success, and that's causing a lot of turbulence around the cycles. Everybody strives to have at least one live embryo, and that's a lot of pressure on the couple or on the individual. Embryos can be conceived in utero when we inject the sperm into the utero, and we hope for ovulation, for the egg to meet the sperm in the uterus, or it can be transferred into the uterus. That's the word transfer. You're going to hear a lot of that as you work with people going through fertility journey. What's a transfer? That's when an embryo is placed into the uterus to grow there. What is infertility? Well, the official definition is an ability to conceive a child after 1 year of trying via unprotected intercourse. It can vary. That amount of time can actually shrink with advanced maternal age, as they want to get to fertility treatment sooner. And what people don't know always is at the peak maternal age, in their 20s, the chances to conceive are 20% per month. It's not 100% per month.
20%.
20% per month on average. So it can take easily half a year to a year to try, even at your peak fertile age.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that clients need to be made aware of. As fertility doctors are very, very busy people who never have the time. They pour the information on their head as a cold shower sometimes, and then I leave in 10 minutes. And I see us as the next, probably one of the more, maybe not the most, but very important step is to help them understand, digest information, and seek for information that they need. Some of it we're able to provide, and we need to be aware of the places where we need to refer them to the doctor, to the fertility clinic nurse, to gather the missing information. There's huge gaps all the time, just from my practice. And that's an important
Sure, because there is so much information to give.
It's a wealth of information, and tiny things can make a huge difference. And the awareness is very, very important, both for following the medical procedure and the schedule, which is crucial, and for reducing the level of anxiety and depression and the stress.
Mm-hmm.
The factors for fertility could be not ovulating, could be low ovarian reserve, which happens with age, could be just the cells aging up. People are very largely not aware that this happens. When they say biological clock, it really is a clock. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter what your health and diet and level of exercise are. It's a clock, sadly. And the thought is that the DNA gets damaged as we live. And the longer we live, the more the cumulative damage. And at some point, if we start in our peak fertility age with about 10% of, I think it's about 10% of eggs being infertile, in our 40s, it's about, I think it's approaching 90%.
Oh, that's significant.
Yes, so the chances of conceiving with own egg drop drastically towards later ages, later maternal age.
Mm-hmm.
Male factor also, and people are not aware of that. And that's a discussion, a huge discussion, because that's when they discover that the time is lost and you can't make up for it. Very many women enter the late fertility journey with the thought, I'm healthy, I'm fit, I eat well, I should have no problems conceiving, my cycle is on the clock. And it's really hard for them to accept that all of that doesn't matter. There's a lot of struggle, a lot of rebellious behavior against that. People waste fortune trying with their own eggs. And then comes the second wave of why did I let me do this? Why did I not know? Why did they wasted my time and a fortune on trying with my own egg, where I should have been working on conceiving with someone else's egg. And then the age comes where they will no longer touch you. In Canada, it's between 43 and 46 somewhere. Some clinic would agree to work with you a little bit later, but I think nobody in Canada takes you in approaching 50s. Some clinic overseas do it at very, very advanced stages, such as 60. I've heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's added finances, logistics, stress, uncertainty, as those are typically third world countries. Not saying they are necessarily bad, but it's probably less regulated and more unexplored, and that adds on the uncertainty and the stress they're already.
For sure.
Male factor plays a role. It could be no sperm, low count, low motility, genetic disorders, male hormone production, or it could be just unexplained. Sometimes there's no reason. The doctor cannot pinpoint the reason why the pregnancy isn't happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very, very frustrating, because then the question comes, why? The person inevitably will think at some point they're getting punished for something, and that's very heavy.
Sometimes it can be like a mismatch too between partners, that they, struggle for a pregnancy, it doesn't happen, get into a new relationship or have an affair, pregnancy.
Yes, that can happen.
Yeah, same with IVF, right? Like preparing even for IVF and pregnancy, even though it appeared to be no hope of pregnancy on their own. Yeah. Or sometimes even adopting a child, right? And then all of a sudden,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
The
amazing.
thought behind it, one thought behind it, is that the stress actually prevents you from getting pregnant while they're going through the procedure.
True, true.
And then the stress is relieved, and stress is thought to be linked to inflammatory processes, and that has to do with the embryo rejection.
Right,
But
right.
remarkably, these are all speculations. There's no hard evidence to date in
No.
literature confirming that the stress can make you infertile. The stress
True.
can make you not following the procedures or medication schedule and make you infertile that way. But anxiety and stress on their own are not proven yet to be the factor. There's a lot of thought around it, and linking it to the inflammatory processes which are involved in embryo rejection.
Right, right, right. Yeah.
A lot of research going on, but we have no evidence so far. That's a very important counseling point, as I see this as a very vicious cycle. The person thinks that now I'm infertile because I'm stressed, and it causes more stress.
Mm-hmm.
That's something to explore with the patient and communicate that there's no hard evidence yet. What we can do is mitigate the stress, but they don't have to blame themselves for being infertile because they were stressed.
Mm-hmm.
And that relieves some of that anxiety.
So true, so true.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, there is a kind of je ne sais quoi to it, right? Like there's something like and it's not a tangible something.
The thing, and it's everywhere. It's wide advertised, and people read about it, people absorb it. So far, all I see, it's causing an added stress. It's never helped. I have not seen one case where the thought, I'm not fertile because I'm stressed, having actually helped. Well, it could be the reason, but realizing, agreeing with that thought has not yet been a cure in my books.
Mm-hmm.
Only worsens things.
It's true. It's true. It is hard to know.
Yeah.
It
And
could be a factor, the multiple hundreds of thousands of factors, right?
absolutely, yes, such as sexual dysfunction, and not always the patient will disclose it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very sad, but sometimes you won't know, and the male partner would be shy, or the female partner will be shy to disclose it and it takes building a very good rapport and a lot of trust, and that takes time. And meanwhile, they're going through the fertility treatments. For example, with pills, there's pills that can stimulate ovulation, and then your sex is prescribed.
Yes.
And when you fail to do it as prescribed, guess what happens? You don't get an embryo when you are ovulating, and that may not be disclosed. I've
True.
heard cases when the patient don't disclose to the doctor that they weren't able to have sex as ordered, and those treatments fail, sadly. And this is our role. This is where we come in, because the doctor does not have the time to build that kind of rapport. They jump in for 10-15 minutes.
Yeah.
That's on us.
Yeah. They have a focus.
Yep.
That's it. Yeah.
There could be medications that affect fertility. There could be prior medical treatments that can impact the egg, the sperm, the embryo, and the uterus. It is for the doctor to collect history, but again, they don't necessarily have the time.
True. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so, and it is important, to have a good support system, to have somebody to talk to in order to be able to figure things out. There's always Dr. Google.
Oh, yes.
Right? Dr. Google's very popular and can be, I think, very heartbreaking for people as well, right? Because the reality of the situation is quite staggering, I think, when you think about infertility, how much of it is there is actually really out there. And when it is that you start to do the research, then you can start to actually really find out all of this information, where it is that you think it just should come naturally. And the truth is not. And also too, I think people do put a lot of effort into becoming pregnant, because it can become a very repetitive job.
Oh, God, it can become a very long journey. Yes.
Yes, and very hard on the couple, and as opposed to increasing intimacy and connection can completely destroy the relationship.
Absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's primary versus secondary infertility. Just a bit of lingo. The secondary infertility is post the first child.
Right.
When they don't have a child, it's primary. And then there's, of course, miscarriage or recurrent miscarriage. Spontaneous loss of pregnancy before 20 weeks is miscarriage. After 20 weeks is stillbirth. And recurrent miscarriage is a failure of 2 or more clinical pregnancies. And that happens to 1 or 3%, 1 to 3% of all couples in their reproductive years. And that's a very important bit of information to convey. It's much more common than we think.
Very common.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially now too that they have, I mean, the medical community or pharmaceutical community has created these tests that tell you immediately, tell you one thing, when it is that you're ovulating, but another thing when it is that you have become pregnant.
Yes.
As soon as.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But it is also a big source of distress. I had couples who bought 15 pregnancy tests at a time and had used it every few hours on the day where it's supposed to start showing.
Wow.
And you can imagine the accompanying anxiety and stress and distress and frustration.
For sure. And especially when it is that you think about like the miscarriage rate, right? Because you might be pregnant, but the truth is not hold that pregnancy for a certain period of time.
That's right. And it's thought to be a defense mechanism, because sometimes miscarriages happen to embryos which are not vital. The body rejects it because they're not right.
Mm-hmm.
So that rescues you, but we don't know that. And
Exactly. It's impossible to tell. How do you know?
Yeah, it's something to mention to the client that it can be what is called physiological miscarriage. In this case, it's to protect you.
Hmm.
Yeah. A bit
Exactly.
more terminology. ART is assistive reproduction technology. You're going to hear a lot of that. ART protocols. IUI is intrauterine insemination. It's when the semen is brought into the uterus artificially. And then there's in vitro fertilization, or IVF, commonly known as. That's stimulation of ovulation, collecting of the eggs. It used to be under general anesthesia. It doesn't have to be anymore. Not a big advance. And then fertilizing those eggs outside the body and consequent embryo transfer.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a pregnancy test, which you can buy 15 of.
Those are big ticket items, right? So there could be a lot of expense to this.
Oh God, yes. And imagine families of the same sex. It's use of donor sperm, donor egg, gestational carrier. So many ways to have a baby, but also so many ways to lose money and time and health.
For sure, for sure. Now, I do believe that we have in Ontario anyway, like a program where it is that the IVF is covered
Yeah.
to a certain point.
To the age of, if I'm not wrong, it could be, it's either 40, I think it's 43.
Ah.
And I believe it's for parents who don't have a child. There's some other limitations which are so frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, some companies I've heard are bringing benefits of fertility treatments onto the expanded benefits plan, which is unheard of. And I think it's some kind of wonderful, very human of them to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and certainly more and more workplaces have insurance for counseling, and that needs to be, of course, used when people are going through fertility journey, because the effect on mood and mental well-being are so many and so far-reaching. It could threaten one's identity as a person, as a spouse, as a daughter or son, member of a family, member of society. It can be seen as personal failure and could cause depression with feelings of being defective or threatening your worth as a person.
Mm-hmm.
You could be not accepted in some society groups, in the moms groups and clubs. You suddenly can't belong because guess what? You're not a mom. The emotional outcomes could be depression or just sadness, profound sadness. Can be confusion about who I am, what to do next, and that point where you stand and you don't understand what you're supposed to do or be. A lot of shame when you're not comparing with the stigma.
Mm-hmm.
Tons of anxiety and stress, and it could be throughout the process. It could be peaks of it before the major procedures or when the major news are relayed to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's interesting talking about media or just, being out and about in society. When you're not thinking about wanting to have a child, you don't pay any attention, right? At all, right? And then all of a sudden, you see every diaper commercial. You never saw them before, but then all of a sudden you see every single diaper commercial.
It's like buying a Hyundai. Suddenly you see Hyundais everywhere. You never noticed them before.
Exactly, right? All kinds of children everywhere.
Yeah.
And
Very, very anxiety provoking. And not to add that miscarriage increases the risk for PTSD and for OCD, but all of those things, people can be just extremely tired. Somatization pops up, right? You suddenly discover somatic symptoms, which are not really justified by any somatic findings. People are moody, and obsessive thoughts and behaviors surface a lot. Yeah,
Oh, exactly. Nothing is worse than wanting something that you just can't have.
absolutely.
And yet seeing, and it might even be your relative, your sister, your twin even, right, having children and you not.
God, yes, yes. And then there's a lot of grief and loss. And that's a big part of counseling, especially for failed procedures.
Mhm.
It's about loss of a dream. It's about loss of a place in the society, loss of, imagine yourself as healthy. People start thinking of themselves as detective against everyone else having a baby, like you just mentioned.
Oh, exactly. And one of the first things that happens as soon as people announce they're going to get married, first thing that happens is the next question, and when are you going to have kids?
Oh, yes.
Yes, well meaning, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah, because that's just the progression, a modernist progression. Perhaps not so much anymore. People don't get married as much anymore. People have made the choice of not having children way more now than
that's
ever before.
right.
So there is a sort of like normalization of those things, whereas before not. It was just that progression, right?
That's right. And
Mhm.
I would explore that in counseling, not necessarily for infertility, but in general, what does this mean? Because sometimes it's an honest decision, sometimes it's implied, it's imposed on you by your partner. Sometimes it's caused by financial strains or extreme strains of health, and that could be detrimental. Or you could decide having a baby against this will of not having a child under the pressure of society.
Mhm.
And that's the wonderful movie We Need to Talk About Kevin,
No?
which is a huge, a great piece of art, but it depicts why people who don't want to have a child should not have a child.
Uh,
In a way, there's a lot more to it than that, but yes, I recommend that movie very much.
oh, exactly, right. And I think also too that brings up about that sense of meaning. Why is it that parents who don't want to have children do, whereas when it is that, perhaps you're struggling to have a child, you can't, right? And all those kinds of like things that just feel like such discrepancies. Um, that people start asking those questions. Why? Why does it work that way?
That's right. That's right. And then there's a lot of depression. Well, people in fertility, well, women in fertility treatments are twice as much meeting the criteria for major depression. And about 30, one third, I think, of women with recurrent pregnancy loss have major depression. High rates of anxiety, both for male and for female, high rate of depression for male as well. And the anxiety doesn't necessarily go away when you do conceive. So when you're counseling a couple who's struggling and then become pregnant, it's, I feel like it should never be, oh, congratulations, you're off the hook, you're done.
One part is done.
One part is done, and it's to say congratulations, and I know how hard it has been and how hard it will be. Because people who conceive through IRT are much more prone to anxiety throughout the pregnancy, and then that carries over to parenthood.
For sure. I mean, there's no givens, there's no guarantee.
Oh, yes.
Mhm.
And yes, a lot of anxiety is related to medications use, and boy, do they ever question what the doctor prescribed. Dr. Google is their best advisor, and women are very much prone to look at what the other one feels and what the medications do to her and drawing conclusions that that's what will happen to me. So I'm not doing that. I'm not taking an aspirin. I'm not, because yes, a lot of stubbornness against just not using medications. I've had cases when the doctor would prescribe medications starting a cycle, and the woman will just quietly not use it, saying, my cycle is good. I have a cycle. Don't make me have a cycle. I have my own. And that's not what works. And that causes failures and frustration and, yeah, a lot of desperation.
I bet, I bet. Yeah. What are your suggestions for people who might be watching who are in the midst of struggling with infertility?
It's, well, if we're talking about the internet use, I find it's mostly happening when they are struggling with the loss of control, the sense of loss of control. It's in the hands of the doctor now. My fate is in the hands of my doctor. There's no way I'm not doing anything. Doctors don't pay attention. He came for 10 minutes. What does he know? I'm going to do research, right? And I'm going to decide. There's a lot of that, and that brings them back the sense of control and the sense of they're contributing to their story. And it's reframing this to direct this effort to obtaining the information from the doctor's office and working with the doctor, communicating their concerns so that they could be addressed, not necessarily by the doctor, but there's a nurse, there's a coordinator that are generally available, or we can make themselves available. We can communicate to them too as therapists and say, hey, my patient so-and-so feels a lot of this, and they're in need of your advice. Please book an appointment with them. And that works.
Mm.
Right, and there's CBT that helps with that. In fact, that because they do realize that the most productive way is trusting the evidence. It's just that, did he really look at the evidence? Because I found this evidence on Dr. Google. A lot of work around that.
Oh dear, for sure, for sure.
That's right, and there's tons of anxiety connected to decisions. There's so many decisions, as it affects the major areas of life. We don't even realize how much it affects. Of course, the relationship and the social life, but also the financial, the house buying or selling, relocation, career, ability to travel, study, all of that.
Mm.
A lot of anxiety for these decisions, as we know that when you have a choice, that means that both ways can work, only with different repercussions.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So what counseling can do for them is to enhance communication of the couple and address the grief and loss and self-blame, which is a lot of that. Why is my body defective? What did I do? Why did I took so much time before I decided to have a baby? It's how to deal with family and friends. That's a huge bit.
Mm-hmm.
As family can be judgmental, friends can be condescending and judgmental, and we want to keep our family in our social circus and a circle. And yeah, there's a lot issues with that.
Mm-hmm.
We can give them some peace and acceptance, regardless of the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Freedom from self-blame, like I mentioned, and help process trauma. Trauma hugely affects what's going on during the treatments, both within the couple and to the individual. Just help them going through the journey, help them realize what the journey will be. As like I said, the doctors don't give them much. So the forming a roadmap is very, very helpful for the couple before the treatments, and help them gain the coping skills of how to deal with this momentary anxiety at the time of procedure, for example.
Right.
Help them make decisions and help them accept the partner's limits. When you work with partners, they often you have different views of where to stop. We're doing so and so, but we're not doing IVF, or we're not doing the donor egg, and the other partner would be desperate, like, I'll do everything it takes, and the partner doesn't agree, and that's a major conflict.
Oh yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's big decisions, right? And sometimes it's huge based upon how you want to live compared to how costly.
Absolutely.
I mean, some people are spending $100,000.
Yes, it could be easily.
Yeah. And
Very
so
easy.
at a certain point, it does become about lifestyle and how you want to live.
Yeah.
You
Are you
know.
ready to sell your house and have a baby? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of decisions. Health risks. Whose DNA to use? Whose uterus to use, right? The cultural values, the family, the friends, What
Mhm.
to do with remaining embryos? You freeze a lot of embryos, and when it works or fails, what are you going to do with them? Are you going to donate them, destroy them?
Exactly. And there's no guarantees.
No.
There might not be any, right? The pregnancy might not last. You know, the child might be high need.
Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
many factors.
Yeah, and they need your support through that. And what really helps, the research shows that what you enter the fertility treatments with hugely affects their outcomes, not in the sense of getting or not getting a baby, but in the sense of mental health.
Mhm.
And the prior psychiatric history is a big predictor of what's going to happen to your mental health through the treatments.
Yeah.
And I wanted to mention that reproductive psychiatrists exist. They are better. There's few of them, but we should try locating them where needed.
Hmm.
Especially when you're getting the psychiatric history. And that's another point, ethical point. When your patient has schizophrenia, doesn't mean that you need to run and report it and they can't have a child, right? It's how well their mental health is controlled and how much of it you see as a potential risk for their future family that should worry you.
Mhm.
There is always a question. Is there something that tells you that their future child might be at risk? You need to be assessing. And if there's a point of concern, you can contact the family doctor, you can contact the reproductive psychiatrist to refer them to. You can discuss with the with the fertility doctor. It's we're ethically obligated to do to prevent harm. And that's hard because the person desperately wants a baby, is so invested in all ways, but you see that there's a threat. They're not responsible, they're not great with activities of daily living. You see gaps that could be potentially dangerous to a newborn. That question needs to be raised. And ethically, we're obligated to talk to them about that, which could be really hard. But that's a thought.
For sure, other supports need to be put in place.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot to it. It's not simple. And part of it also, too, I think, is to normalize that, because the stats are very high on miscarriage, on, you know, IVF not working as opposed to working. I mean, you know, it's amazing what they can do, and it's amazing what they can't do.
That's right. Yeah. Talking about that roadmap, that stage of preparing them, a roadmap includes telling them that yes, there will be failed transfers likely your first one will not work. The top count that I saw was 12 transfers, 12 cycles.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot. And then the 13th, I think, just worked, just like we slept the side of a TV. It suddenly worked. No change in protocol, nothing. Can you imagine going through all of that? It's unbelievably hard. And the resilience that it took that couple amazes me.
Oh, it's true, right? Yeah.
Right.
Part of it is keeping the hope alive, right? Because there's always hope. And, you know, and sometimes the path isn't linear, right? The path can be very winding, you know, and sometimes it's about not keeping the hope alive. It's about acknowledging that there are limits, and then redirecting to whatever it is that will continue to give meaning and hope in a different way.
Right. That's right. And it's guiding the couple, which might be just set in one set of thoughts to exploring other options. Sometimes maybe the 12 cycles failed and they would benefit from looking into adoption. But that's a very, very hard next decision. It was very hard for them to decide to use a donor egg. I can promise you that. I have gone through a fertility cycle treatment, and it's very, very hard to make every next decision. And switching to adopting is a next huge leap of faith. And yeah, change your perspective. But they need to be guided towards it, because sometimes, yes, they say after that, what was I thinking? Why didn't I stop it when I still had the money and the time and I didn't turn to adoption?
Yes, yes. It's so true, right? I mean, you have a child, every child is different. Child with a wonderful disposition, happily sleeps, the whole gambit. And then you have another child, colicky, never sleeps, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
And
once,
the same with adoption, right? You can adopt one child, wonderful disposition, the next child, not so much.
yes, and they need to be ready.
Exactly, exactly. It takes a lot of coping, a lot of ability, a lot of, I think, realization that, you know, everyone is different, everything is different. It could go completely differently, and then a new skill set would need to be developed.
Absolutely. And what universally helpful here is to work on the relationship, because that could be a huge source of added distress or the antidote to the distress through the treatment. And
Yeah, it is true, right? I mean, the one of the things about our postmodern society is that you don't need to be married to have children. You don't need to have a partner, right? Like you can do what it is that you so choose to do, as long as you have the resources in order to fulfill your wish and your dream, right? Although it's a tough road.
oh yes, yes it is.
Yeah, and so it's good to have the support system. It's good to have the coping. It's good to be able to reach out
Yeah,
when it is that you're needing help, and have others there.
that's right. And then you become the attachment figure. If the person came alone, not necessarily it's a single parent, but sometimes people come to you not as a couple, but as an individual. And then you're the attachment figure for them. You're the one they will turn to for comfort. But the relationship to work on from that is their relationships with themselves, right? Because attachment issues surface all the time in fertility journey. Whether it's the couple or an individual, it always bubbles to the surface. And the journey is very triggering with regards to all attachment wounds. And how we see ourselves and how we see the others will define how we weather the distress, right? How much we trust self
So true, so true.
or the partner or your family.
Exactly, exactly.
It's working.
Yeah, there's so many components to it. And yeah, so I think, and that leads us to the next part, which is to do with parenting, right? Like one is the struggle to have the child. And then the next part is to do with dealing with what it is that you've got.
Absolutely, absolutely. Early parenting can be very, very challenging, regardless how you purchased your child.
Exactly, exactly. And a lot of the times, right, the pregnancy itself is going to be very insightful into what's going to happen when it is that you actually end up having the baby,
Absolutely.
right? It's all related.
Yeah. Lots of
Yeah.
anxiety, much more anxiety, of course, about the child loss for women who conceive through a ART. A lot more anxiety about losing the baby. And then when the baby gets born, they get overprotective and over worrying and helicoptering all the time. And yes, that happens.
Exactly, exactly. That is a bigger conversation.
Okay, yes, I'm very tempted to go there, but perhaps another time.
That's right, exactly. That'll be part two.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Vera, very, very much. for your insights into fertility. You've had a lot of experience about that, as well as your own experience of having your own child. And
I've had children various ways. I have twins naturally. I had the late child through IVF. I've had her very late in life. Yeah, so I've experienced the joys of being judged and being looked at, and it's all about how you weather, how you push through it.
Exactly. If you're determined, then the truth is you have to be willing to defend your determination, right? Yeah. And what it is that you're actually really wanting. Not everybody's going to agree. Not everybody's going to accept, right?
Yes.
People have the right to judge. They just naturally do. We're all judges.
Absolutely. I find it's a hot topic. How do I react when I'm perceived as a grandma?
Yeah.
Well, the truth of the matter is you could as well have been a grandma and a mother.
Yep.
That's the new reality. Why not welcome it, right? So
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Vera, for your conversation today. I truly appreciate that. And I just wanted to say, if anybody's listening to this and you've gone through some fertility issues, or it is you are going through fertility issues, just to reach out. We'd love to hear from you, and give us a like, join. Yeah.
Love a chance to help and support.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you, Vera. Take care.
Thank you for listening.
No, yeah, it's been a
Thank
joy.
you.
Excellent. All right. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.